right, and welcome to the Ramon Foster Show. I am your host, Eddie Provident, not DK today. He's running a little late. He couldn't make it in time, so Ramon and I had to roll without him today. Ramon, how's it going, buddy?
It's going good, man. We got a rule on this show. Don't speak unless you got a mic. Eddie's usually a producer.
There's times I haven't had the mic, man.
And you get no snaps unless you absolutely got a mic, and Eddie got a mic today.
And man, what a day to have a mic, because Minkhah Fitzpatrick got paid, Ramon. He got paid.
I thought you were going to say Minkhah Fats, because
you know what? His pockets are. Hey, what nice save there, man. Way to save me. I appreciate it. Yeah, but if you haven't heard the news already, if you are living under a rock in Pittsburgh, Minkhah Fitzpatrick signed a 4-year deal. Average annual salary is $18.4 million. $36 million of it is guaranteed. The total comes out to $73.6 million, which makes him, Ramon, the highest paid safety in NFL history. Just initial thoughts on the deal, initial thoughts for Minkhah. What do you think, man?
Man, when we initially traded for Minkhah, you had to give up a first rounder and some more. And I knew about Minkhah because of Alabama guy. He's the SEC guy. I knew he was a first rounder, all of those things. But when we traded away a first and he came into Pittsburgh from day one, okay, he single-handedly kept us. And of course, everybody played their role. But as far as, impact plays, when we went to San Francisco and he put on that jersey and he was making plays, everybody on the sideline specifically remember us like, yep, he was worth it. Even if he does nothing else, the initial impact of having him on that defense, and I'll say it was kind of confusing also because it was almost of the mindset, well, we got Terrell and I thought everything was going to be all right, but then I've kind of always alluded to this when it comes down to first round. The first rounders are special, every single one of them. But if you have that opportunity to get a top 10, top 15 even sometime, like there's a threshold of like when you say top 10 guys. One of my best friends in the world to this day is Gerard Mayo, played for the New England Patriots, got a Super Bowl ring and everything, and he was very special. Looking at Ben, he's one of those top 15 type of guys. Troy's one of those top 15 type of guys. You look at that list, and there is a separator. There is a grading scale on what special is. I've heard people say, hey, if you're picking a wide receiver in the top 5, he needs to walk off as a starter. He needs to walk off into the Hall of Fame if you're going to get a guy of that caliber. Minkhah, to me, proved why you go get a top 10 pick. If you're afforded to be able to give away assets like first round, like draft picks and whatnot, Minkhah himself has solidified Kev's trade. Omar on the back end of this has kind of solidified why you go get that. So there you go as far as one, Kev being Kev, okay? As far as going to go get a guy. It worked, right, Eddie? And then, of course, Omar Khan just alluded to the fact that, look, we're going to keep a lot of what Kev has done because that's a great template to kind of roll by as far as what Kev has set down. And one of his first moves is to lock up Minkhah. And I think everybody and their mamas knew he was going to get a deal. It was just a matter of what's justifiable, what's good for the team, what's good for him. Because you don't get that deal unless he signs off on it. And he's got one of the best agents, my former agent, Joel Siegel and Chaffee, that worked that deal for him. So that was, hey, I don't think anybody's batting an eye at that, Eddie.
No. And anybody that I've seen a couple of people that said they paid him too much. I've seen a couple of people that said, that he's not good at. Man, look, the reason why he didn't make the make All Pro last year, and the reason why he didn't make the Pro Bowl last year, is teams were staying away from him, man. And look at everything that he had to put up with. Let's be real. Devin Bush did not play up to the standard that Devin Bush sets for himself, let alone what the Steelers set for him. Spillane and Schobert were not. I mean, Spillane's solid, but he's a solid number 3 guy in the middle. He's not a starter, I don't think. And Schobert just wasn't what the Steelers brought him in to be. So I don't think people understand it, for a free safety like Minkhah Fitzpatrick to have to come in and kind of roam the middle of the field and make up for subpar middle linebacker play. And then you factor in Stephon Tuitt not being there. So the front 2 layers, and Tyson Alualu, the front 2 layers were not great up the middle for the Steelers. And so Minkhah Fitzpatrick had to make up for that. And he did.
He did 100%, man. And not just that, sometimes it kind of comes down to the right system for you. And Minkah kind of acknowledged that. I know he didn't necessarily say, this was a system for him, but it was like, there's no other place I want to go play at. From day one, his impact as opposed to where he was in Miami to when he came to Pittsburgh was like a totally different player. And they were Coach T and Coach Butts at the time was able to tap into that. And you talk about he's not worth it. Let's just look at his accolades real quick. And none of this is fluff. Pro Bowl, I'll give it to anybody. Somebody can be an alternate. There are no alternates when it comes down to all pro. This man is 3 teams, if I'm not mistaken, all pro first team. That says a lot about him. And you mentioned the fact that nobody's throwing to his sides. Okay, let's look at the interceptions really quick. He go from 5, 4 to 2. Well, why would I continue to throw in his vicinity whenever he's going to either get the ball or tip the ball to somebody else? And I would almost venture to say there are other guys that ended up getting those interceptions that were usually towards him. I think Terrell interceptions have kind of gone up over the last couple of years. Yep. The plays that he's making on the ball in the air to where other guys are benefiting from it. You cannot say that he's not an effective guy in the run game. Just the way he's ran down Lamar, the way he's ran down Kyler Murray, his impact on being able to shoot the gap from that position, especially in the tight red zone, which is where it's more available. Look at the tape. His play in the tight red zone is measured to nobody else other than his own. And that's a key point to be made. Yes, there'll be a breakdown here or there when it comes down to, play at that position.
That's football, but as far as football.
It's football, right? As far as his impact on defenses, you throw to him if you want to. The impact of what he's done kind of speaks for itself as far as setting the tone for this Steelers defense.
Yeah, and this is on a much, much smaller level, obviously talking about the high school game. But when I coached at Steel Valley, we had Paris Ford, former Pitt player now with the USFL. And when the year that we got him, his senior year, the difference that it made on our defense, having that star in the back of your defense, that's kind of, that's why they're called safety, right? They're the safety net. Yeah. They're the ones that when all else fails, when everything goes wrong, that's the guy that's got you. And to have Minkhah Fitzpatrick back there, it makes a big difference. Just like even on the high school level, it makes a big difference. On the college level, it makes a big difference. On the pro level, it makes a big difference. And to have Minkah, and another thing, Ramon, that we haven't even mentioned yet, is the timing of this deal. One, it ensures that he's going to be a full participant in training camp. And two, as my buddy Nick Faribault pointed out on Twitter yesterday, they got this done before Derwin James and Jesse Bates. So the Steelers set the market rather than the other team setting the market and them having to play catch up. Omar Khan did a great job with this one, man.
Yeah, he did. And let me correct myself. 2-team first-team All-Pro and 2-time Pro Bowler, too. I said 3. He probably should have gotten 3.
He probably should, yeah.
But just in general, his impact is almost like Troy. It's almost like James Harrison when you're out there. Like, if he continues on at the rate that he's going, I don't think it's bad to mention those names and say Minkhah Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward. You know who you're talking about in those situations. And to your point, your last point, Eddie, very smart on Omar. Beat everybody else to the punch. He's the highest paid right now. Annual average valuation of that contract is through the roof. And if Minkah's happy, I'm happy. And here we go, Steelers.
Yeah, for sure, man. Hey, listen, let's take a break. When we come back, now that we're talking about Minkah Fitzpatrick, and it looks like the defense is set now, maybe an addition or two coming up. But now that the defense is set, I want to get your take on what their ceiling is and what the, maybe like the bare minimum you would accept as a Steelers fan and as somebody that used to play for the Steelers. So stick around. We'll be right back with the Ramon Foster Show. All right, welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. I'm Eddie Provident. With me, as always, is the man whose name is on the show, Ramon Foster. Ramon, we talked about Minkah Fitzpatrick and how big of a deal that is for this football team. My question to you now is, what does this mean for this defense? Because it looks like, aside from maybe an addition or two, this defense is set, and it's set for a few years. You've got TJ with an extension, Minkah with an extension. Yeah. Pretty much everybody that they want locked up is locked up for a few years. So I guess we'll frame it this way. What is the ceiling for this team, for this defense? And then what is the bare minimum that you would accept if you were in that locker room for this defense?
For this defense, as much leadership as it has, as much experience that it has also, That can be questionable too, because then you start to factor in age and like if a guy gets injured. Yeah, how long does it take for them to get back? It's always that aspect of it. So I'm looking at a guy, Tyson Lewis, 13 years of experience right now. He just dealt with an injury. Right. Can he come back and sustain himself too? So you got that side of it, but you also got some very young guys and some, small experience when it comes to this team. So we got to factor in that a little bit. Even with that being said, the way that defense is kind of constructed, the DNA of it, having Cam and TJ on the front end, having a guy like Miles Jack in the middle, and I'm just naming one or two guys at each position, but also having Minkah. And let's be real. I know people like to give him crap and they're going to throw that B word around when we're talking about Terrell, but he's no bust. He's become more solid. I think it takes a little bit more time when it comes down to his development. And I just think it's okay to say a first round, and Terrell was a later first rounder, was a solid pick. It's a matter of, one, can he come back and play well? And if he does, will he sign back with this team also? You know what I'm saying? For a very fair deal, because at this point, he can be a solid starter in NFL. And if him and Minkah's chemistry is as good as it can be moving forward, when you take the stress of a deal, when you take the stress of, man, I got to perform so that I can get paid, they can be solid. I think the floor for this team, honestly, defensively, could be top 10. I go no lower than like top 12. If they're top 10 as a floor, and let's say if they, as best as they could get throughout the season, 5 to 7, and I'm not sure, the season has to play itself out. So I don't want to say they're top 3 defense on paper before we even know anything about anybody else, because Buffalo went and got Vaughn. They had a very good defense to begin with. You also got the Las Vegas Raiders. They went and shopped a whole lot this offseason too. You also got Khalil Mack going to the Chargers. So defenses are in a very good spot. Heck, the team I cover here in Nashville, the Titans, they got a very solid defense that's kind of jumped on the scene last year too. So I think the arms race as far as combating these powerful offenses in the NFL has kind of shifted a little bit under the radar to the defensive side of the ball. So with that being said, I go floor 10-11. And I say, as good as they can get, 5 to 7. If they go better than 5 and 7, man, I know a lot of people are counting the Steelers out and saying, this could be their first losing season, considering the quarterback play, the uncertainty of that. If you got a top 5 to 7 defense and you got Chris Boswell also that's able to put points up on the board, and your defense can stop them from scoring touchdowns, and they, accumulate a bunch of turnovers throughout the season, we can still hover very well above 500 and potentially be 1 or 2 in the AFC North, man, when it comes down to it. At the minimum, be that 7th wild card seed. And I'm not being overly optimistic, but the DNA of what this defense has of youth and some older guys and the way it's always played, that's a fair shake, I feel like, Eddie.
I mean, if you look at where their weaknesses were, right? Obviously, the interior defensive line was a weakness because of injuries and missing Stephon Tuitt last year. I don't know that they really did anything to address that, and that's my one big question mark on this defense. But if you look at their other weaknesses from last year, you look at cornerback play, right? Well, they locked up Ahkello Witherspoon. They brought him back. They brought in Levi Wallace, who's a very solid coverage guy. Actually, I think may have been Pro Football Focus had him ranked top 10 in coverage corners. Yeah, so I mean, they solidified the corners, which is going to help. We talked about Minkah struggling, having issues with the rest, weaknesses and trying to cover for that. Well, locking down the corner position and getting Cam Sutton back in the middle, Cam Sutton back in the middle, that or in the inside, that helps, right? And then you bring in Miles Jack to help out that interior linebacker position, and we know what to expect from Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. I don't I'm with you. I don't think they're going to be the number 1 defense in the NFL because, I mean, look at all the teams you mentioned, plus the Rams, so you've got a lot of good defenses in the NFL this year. But I think they can be a top 5 to top. I'm with you. Top 5 to top 7 seems pretty fair. If everyone stays healthy and everyone plays to their capabilities, top 5 to 7 is very realistic. And I'm with you, man. I think that helps.
I would almost go as far as to say, to just the way the scheduling kind of, you're not going against everybody's number 1s this year as far as who you got to say. I mean, let's think about the year before. You pretty much playing the 1 of everybody. I don't think New England's going to be super strong. I'm not looking too far past the Jets. Miami could be good. Philly is going to be decent too. But look at the Saints. We got Colts. We got Falcons. We got we got Carolina. Like there are some teams that you can get.
It's a lighter schedule this year. Yeah.
It's a lighter schedule. Yes.
And also something that I'm sure you could speak to better than anybody, the lack of travel in this schedule this year too. The furthest they're going is Miami this year, Miami and Atlanta. Mm-hmm. They don't have to go any further than that. So that's a big deal too, because that means more rest.
And can I say this side of it too? If in fact they do put an emphasis on the run game offensively, that means playing keep away from other teams' other teams' offenses. That can blend a whole lot into the fact that this team could be refreshed. We see what Najee looks like. We know they went and got some run graders when it comes down to, the offensive side of the ball. If they get that cohesion and chip away at the clock as much as possible until the quarterbacks get in place, I see that being a fair shake to say this defense can be very fresh. If, again, health is always a key when it comes down to this type of discussion of where do you think this defense can be.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And, DK, I think, really put it well in his Daily Shot a couple of days ago that he said counting the Steelers out this year is just straight up vapid. Look, I'm with you. I'm not saying they're going to win the division. I'm not saying they're going to be a top 3 team in the AFC. I don't want it to come across as the Yinzer goggles, right? But you've got to understand all the talent that they have. It's young talent, but all the talent that they have on offense, right? And then this defense alone is going to win them football games. Look at the Seattle game last year. TJ Watt snatched victory from the jaws of defeat on his own last year. A couple of times, but that Seattle game is the one I remember distinctly. So if you get that same kind of play, they shore up the run defense a little bit, and the offense is just average. They don't look, they were the 31st offense in the NFL last year.
Efficient. Yeah.
All they've got to be, if that offense is top 20, Moan, and this defense is what we think it could be, they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot just based on numbers alone. So, I don't
teams.
Yeah, I don't think that there should be any gloom or doom in Pittsburgh. I don't think that anyone should count this team out. But I also let's be realistic. They're not going to win the AFC. They're not going to win the AFC North. It's going to be it's going to be a grind
fight
this
if
year.
They do.
Yeah. But hey, man, when we come back, we got the Hey Moan question. Those are always good. So stick around. We'll have one more segment. All right, welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. It is our Hey Moan segment, everybody's favorite segment. And today's question is from Gabe McCain. Gabe asks, Hey Moan, while on the topic of the offensive line, wouldn't you expect that the Steelers will go as far as the O-line can take them this year, no matter who is under center? I think it's a great question for what we talked about a little bit ago about the, projections for the Steelers and where we think they could be, because I do think it's going to be driven by this offensive line this year, Moan. What say you as a offensive lineman?
I agree with that, and a lot of pressure is going to be on those guys. They had a down year. We can admit that. It's not. I don't think anybody in that O-line room would push back and say they had a good year. No, it was a down year, man. Just looking at the fact that it 38 sacks you're giving up, which isn't overly bad, but you're still in the top half of it. I think that's top 10, top 12 as far as sacks given up over the season, and just the rhythm of the rhythm of the play, the offense last year was on the backs of the offensive line. Giving the ball on first down, 1 yard. Giving the ball again to him on second down, you get 2 yards. That's third and long. That's bad, man. So, and you had Ben, and I know a lot of people say, well, Ben last year. No, screw that. We're talking about older guys being able to play for a while when it comes down to the effects of what their offensive line can do for them, how efficient that offense is. If you're in 2nd and 10 for the majority of the year, that's a bad take to have. So I think the emphasis on going to get good free agents. Again, James Daniels, I don't think we can overestimate. I don't think we can overstate how big of a signing that was. His
Absolutely
PFF
huge
grade, I know a lot of people look at that, was very high. Mason Cole's another guy. And just honestly, the competition aspect of what's in front of those young guys this year, as far as what they need to do to be able to play and play well and know what it is to compete. So I kind of agree with you. We're talking about how good this defense can be. That's hinged on the fact of how long, will they be out there playing defense if this offense is, can I just say, trash? Can I say inefficient?
Yeah.
Can I just say unstable? All of those
because
words
until the fourth quarters last year, that's pretty much what they
Yeah.
were, man. I mean, I'm not trying to be harsh, but it is what it is.
No. that is a rough day at the office for the defense. There were some times when I felt like we would go through 2 games of sputtering. And then we have that common to Jesus conversations like, offense, what do we got to do to make this right? And then you get to the point, okay, just keep it simple. Stop overthinking it. Just go beat people up. And I'm hoping that they establish that, because Najee is a daggone good back. I don't think we can understate that. And it would be a shame to let that talent go to waste or get beat up, or he's at the line of scrimmage in the famous where he's one hand on the ground, clawing, trying to get a yard or 2. That can't be the case this year. So yes, I agree. I'm not overly worried about the quarterback play. I'm worried about how those guys up front just truly establish the line of scrimmage and beat people up. That's all I want to see from those guys this year.
And that's a big thing for me, Ramon, is even Kevin Dotson, and I'm not going to misquote him. I'll just paraphrase what he said, but he basically said that Najee would have been a much better back next year if the offensive line was better. And now you said in the intermission that Najee only averaged 3.9 yards a carry, which needs to be better. I mean, how much do you put that on the shoulders of the offensive lineman, though? Because 3.9 yards a carry behind that O-line, to me, as an outsider, is still like, wow, that's not terrible.
Look at his carries. Najee had 307 carries last year.
Yeah,
and a lot of the time we're all watching the game
for every yard.
He did, and that's a hard life to live. I mean, the lifespan of a running back in this league is very short in itself. So to say that he could have been a 2,000-yard rusher, I think that's fair to say. But also, he did acknowledge that they weren't that great last year. And if your pride doesn't hit you deep in the depths of your soul when you say that type of stuff, shame on you. So if you got a 2,000-yard running back, show us. Let me see what you guys do to get him there. And I promise you, the gifts will be amazing if you get that and you go to Canton.
Right?
Because there's not many of those floating around.
And for me, Moan, when you look back at the Steelers teams of the past, there was an identity there, right? And I don't think last year's football team had an identity. Like when you played, the identity was that you, Al, Pounce, Gilly, you guys were all, and Dave. Yeah, how can I forget Dave? But you guys were gonna come in. You were gonna punch the defense in the mouth. You were gonna make a way for Lev Bell. You were gonna make a way for D'Angelo. You're gonna make a way for whoever the running back was, and you were gonna make sure Ben didn't get dirty. That was the identity of this Steelers football team. We're gonna be tough. We're gonna punch you in the mouth, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I don't think that they have that right now, and that's what they need.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait to see it, man. I'm looking forward to seeing that cohesion and develop this fall in camp.
Yeah, me too. And speaking of O-line, I got to be selfish here real quick. You see me wearing the West Mifflin gear. I'm up on the coaching staff up at West Mifflin. And you want to talk about offensive lines leading the charge? I want to shout out Tyler Forstoffer, Anthony Trunzo, Jaden Brown-Demery, Braden Krause, and Rico Steele. Rico, my cousin, who's already got 2 D1 offers. They're the offensive line up at West Mifflin, and they are leading the charge, man. They're putting the work in the offseason. And I'm a very proud guy, and I know the whole community is proud of them, and I'm excited to see what they do this year. So shout out to West Mifflin football. Shout out to Coach Steele. Shout out to the offensive line. And it's going to be a fun season this year, man.
Man, keep leading, big boys. That is the tone of the team.
That's the way to do it. Well, that's all I got for today. You got anything else, Moan?
That's it, man. Let's do this again. Tomorrow, maybe DK shows up.
Maybe DK shows up, but regardless if he shows up or not, that's episode 100 tomorrow. So stick around for that. We'll have some fun. Episode 100. Hey, man, on a Friday. How's that?
That's the perfect way to end this. Hey, I got nothing.
There it is, man.